Welcome to The Edge with Mark Delavan. A world-renowned operatic baritone who's been around the world literally and figuratively with his fair share of victories and defeats. We will answer your burning questions, we'll interview people who we can learn from, and we'll engage in discussions worth having. No topic is off limits.
Welcome to episode 1 of The Edge. For this portion of the video, I'm going to answer 2 questions. The second question is, how did you get started in opera? The first question is going to be a little bit more controversial because I know some of you are thinking it. And that question is very simple. Why the hell should we listen to you? Well, if I'm to be honest, I don't know. But truthfully, there's several answers to that might make some sense to you. The first one is, I know a lot. Okay, so prove it. So what does that mean? Okay, there's an Eastern philosophy that has the statement that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So, are you ready? Okay, that sounds arrogant and it sounds a little bit harsh, so let's move on. There's another philosophy that says it takes 10,000 hours at something to make you an expert. So, let's look this over here. My first full-time job singing opera was from 1983 through 1985 in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was Marilla, Western Opera Theater Tour, the Adler Fellowship Program, multiple small roles and covers with the San Francisco Opera taking place from 1985 through 1988. My international debut was 1989 in Tel Aviv, Israel. New York City Opera debut, 1988. Regional Theater, 1989 through 1992. We moved to New York. I was a New York City Opera regular from 1994 through 2004, basically doing the majority of the dramatic baritone repertoire all the way through those 10 years. My European debut, 2003. Metropolitan Opera debut, 2001, with Luciano Pavarotti, Deborah Voigt, and Olga Borodina. I'll tell you something. It was like playing basketball with the 90s Bulls. You better pass, shoot, or get the hell out of the way. Whew. My Metropolitan Opera debut, 2001. Lyric Opera of Chicago debut in 2002 in Parsifal with Matti Salminen and Catherine Malfitano. Whew. Once again, big time. A regular at the Metropolitan Opera all the way from 2001 through 2013, including but not limited to the Ring Cycle in 2013. I'm tallying up the number of performances, travel, practice, rehearsals, roles learned, and I'm way more than 10,000 hours. Okay, enough of me tooting my own horn. You don't care anyway. You have a computer. You can read my Wikipedia page. Anybody can toot their own horn. So why should you listen to me? 2 reasons. Because I get it and I care. Second question. How did I get started in opera? Long story, but we'll get to it. It basically started as a lie, a slight deception. I was going to Grand Canyon College and I had made my plans. I'm reminded of a scene from Evan Almighty, where Evan is out there by the trash cans with God, talking with God, played by Morgan Freeman. And he's telling him his plans. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a state senator. I'm going to become president. I'm going to have my own law firm. Oh! And Morgan Freeman is behind him, belly laughing. So the joke is, how do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. So meanwhile, I'm telling God my plans. Whoever you think God is. We'll get to that later. And here I am. I'm at the end of my senior year. I've done my senior art show. I've got an art show in the lobby of the theater with all of my work for the last 3 or 4 years. I have an art degree coming up. I'm minoring in music. I'm just trying to get out and get on my way. And this unscrupulous professor offers me a scholarship to sing opera. And I'm thinking, getting paid to sing? I like that. let's give that a try, shall we? So I did, and I started going to the financial aid's office to see if I could get my scholarship. And the man, Joe Harris, sweet man, met me at the door and said, in his southern accent, he said, "Mark, you're not going to get a scholarship. Your education is already paid for. Your parents work here. You're not going to get a scholarship." I said, "Wait a minute, I can't withdraw that money and spend it?" "No, it's a scholarship. Do you know what that word means?" Apparently I didn't. The operas were Giancarlo Menotti's The Telephone and Giancarlo Menotti's Old Maid and the Thief. I was scheduled to do the role of Ben in The Telephone and Bob in Old Maid and Thief. You know, I'm reminded of some really romantic names in the baritone repertoire. Renato in Un ballo in maschera, Conte di Luna in Il Trovatore, Rigoletto, Gianni Schicchi, Wotan in The Ring Cycle, Van der Decken, the Flying Dutchman, Der Fliegende Holländer. My first roles, Ben and Bob. How romantic. Well, you got to start somewhere. Anyway, the thing about Bob was Bob had an aria. "When the air sings of summer, I must wander again. Sweet landlord is the sky." It was pretty. I stopped singing it because there were other English arias that were better. No offense, Giancarlo. That being said, it was a start. And I realized I was onto something. My father had been telling me for years, "Son, you've got a voice." My father was a professor at that school, and he had been teaching people for years. Dad said to me, there were only 2 guys in all of the years that I was teaching that ever had it. One guy's name was Dennis Lovin. "Dennis, if you're out there, that's what Dad said about you." And he said, "And you?" Now, Dad always had to follow it up with a but. And of course he had a but. But your musicianship could need some work. And for some reason, that was just enough for me to just kind of sweep it away and say, "Thanks, Dad, but I've got plans." Remember the joke? You know how to make God laugh? Anyway, I did this opera and I thought, you know what? This might be good. Meanwhile, my family was moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were going to go to a university there. And I signed up for the opera workshop, and I ended up doing in the course of the 2 years. See, I'd already had my degree. I already had a degree, so I was going to get a second bachelor's degree, whatever worth that was. I was basically buying time. Sometimes you got to buy time. My first year, I did the role of Major General in the Pirates of Penzance. Not my favorite role. I don't want to offend anybody, but it's not really me. That second semester, I did Colline in La Boheme. Now, I have to tell you, I didn't know whether I was a bass or a baritone or a bass baritone, anything. I just did whatever they offered me. And you know, a younger voice doesn't really matter. A young male voice doesn't really matter. The second year, I oddly enough, I did Toby in Menotti's The Medium, which was a deaf mute. And I didn't have any lines. I didn't have any singing, which was my best singing. Some people would say that was my best role. I did Simone in Gianni Schicchi. I wanted to do Johnny, and I was kind of ticked off about that. But I got to do the title role in The Marriage of Figaro, my final semester. Meanwhile, Ed Purrington, who's passed and one of my first mentors and helpers, he offered me a very small role in Der Rosenkavalier, the role of Boots, otherwise known as Hausknecht. And I had one line that I sang 11 times. "Ze fürs Aufsperren, ze Herr Baron." 11 times. And I had to count measures. I wasn't very good at that. So that summer, I got a scholarship to go to a place called Inspiration Fine Arts Colony in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Say that 3 times fast. It has since been changed to Opera in the Ozarks. Thank God. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Isaac Van Grove, who was actually a composer, and he just loved working with young singers. He was quite a man. That year, the music director was a gentleman by the name of Roger Cantrell, who was fantastic. That first summer, I did the role of Boaz in a piece that Dr. Van Grove wrote called Ruth. And if you know the story, Boaz is the romantic figure. I did the role of Don Alfonso in Così fan tutte, Enrico and Lucia in Lucia di Lammermoor. 4 huge roles. And I have to tell you, I did not do Enrico very well. I just didn't learn it in time, and that performance was not wonderful. I returned the next summer and I did the role of Don Giovanni. I also did the role of Germont in Traviata. And I basically caused trouble. But that first summer, between the summer and the fall semester, I didn't really know what I was going to do. But I got a call at home from a gentleman by the name of Robert Swedberg, who is still active in the business. And he offered me a contract. Now, it wasn't very much money, but he offered me a contract to do Mephistopheles in a piece called The Devil's Tale, which was a cut-down version of Faust. Don Magnifico in Cenerentola/Cinderella, a cut-down version in English for kids, an hour-long version of a Rossini opera. Can you imagine such a thing? And the baritone soloist in a piece called Opera Extravaganza, where we did every single aria we could think of and ensembles and stuff, and it was for high school kids. I was on stage. I was singing opera. I wasn't making a lot of money, but you know what? You don't make a lot of money. As I said before, I went back to Inspiration Point between the 2 years, and then I came back and I did Papageno in Magic Flute. I also did Don Magnifico again, and I did Opera Extravaganza. However, what I didn't tell you was, in between there, I found out about People's Express. Now, if you look that up online, you're probably not going to get a whole lot, but People's Express was a new airline that was being operated out of Greensboro, North Carolina, and was charging $75 for a round-trip ticket to New York City, and I thought, this is my chance to get to the Big Apple and do some auditioning. So I did 5, 6, 7 auditions over the course of that year. I'd have to get the day off, I'd have to get the weekend off, and I'd fly up. I'd do the audition and fly back that night. It's exhausting, but you got to do what you got to do. I auditioned for the Marilla program in San Francisco, and I got it. And what they wanted me to sing was the title role in Don Giovanni and to cover Faust, to cover Mephistopheles in Faust. Roles that I had just done. Pretty cool. So over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I did Marilla, I did the Western Opera Theater tour, I did the tour of Don Giovanni in the title role, which was really cool. We sang with some amazing people. Julia Faulkner and Deborah Voigt, I both sang with, they were both, Julia sang in Germany for years, and Deb Voigt is an icon, and she was my Donana. Tracy Dahl had a big career. She was one of my Zerlinas. Catherine Harris was one of my Zerlinas, and she is now a professor in a New Jersey. Actually, she's the chairman of the music department in a major New Jersey college. And then I was offered the Adler Fellowship, which took up 2 years of my time, which was great. Once again, as a young singer, the cool thing is to buy time. I did my international debut in Tel Aviv in the role of Marcello in La Boheme, which was a very controversial production. It took place nowhere. It's kind of surreal. Looked like a Dali painting. And no, there were no melted clocks. I subsequently went back to Tel Aviv to do Valentin in Faust. Meanwhile, at the San Francisco Opera, we're getting a chance to cover all kinds of roles. I did a role in Don Carlo. I did a role in the Barber of Seville. I did a role in Manon. I covered a role in Piquedame. I did a small role in Piquedame. It was unbelievable. And we're on stage with stars like Leo Nucci, Mirella Freni, Nikolai Giaurov, Renato Capecchi, Luciano Pavarotti. The list goes on and on. Carol Van Ness in La Traviata. I mean, we did some stuff with some major league people. Being on stage with pros is an amazing opportunity. Moved to New York. Crashed and burned. I finally got a chance to come back to New York City Opera in 1994, and I'd made some changes. I will get to that part another time. The rest is kind of history.